Hello and good morning everyone, and thank you for joining our Veritas Backup Exec webinar today. So we're joined here by Andy Blackham from Veritas, who will be going through the webinar with you. And we also have Ross Campbell here from Bytes, who will be briefly discussing the relationship between Bytes and Veritas at the end of the webinar.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Amy. Good morning, everyone, once again. I'm hoping everyone can see their screen and that's come up clearly. So today we're going to go through Backup Exec 15. So I'm aware there's obviously a bit of a mix amongst you guys in the audience and ladies maybe. So obviously for you, those of you that are new to Backup Exec, this will be very kind of, first glance you might have seen of it. For those of you existing customers, maybe on some older versions, it'll give you a chance to kind of give you an idea of what's coming up in the new versions, as well as some of the new features that have been released recently. So just to give you an idea of the agenda, we're going to look at the recovery, backup recovery challenges, pretty straightforward. We've seen quite a few of these already. We're also going to see there are recent feature pack releases that we've been bringing out. Some of the kind of key core features and functionality around Backup Exec and what we can offer. And then towards the end, we're going to have a very kind of quick demo, give you guys an idea of what it looks like and how it works, and some kind of wizard-driven GUIs within the actual system. And then finally, we're going to go through the pricing and licensing. So moving on. So some of these trends, I'm sure many of you have seen these, maybe even experienced these. And the key ones really are the top three that we see at the top here. So essentially, we're seeing more and more people kind of extending out into the virtual environments, utilizing the existing hardware, getting more machines on there. So we've seen virtual for a while now, but this virtual kind of expansion is creating virtual sprawl, which is obviously leading to more data growth. But coming back, we're also seeing cloud now, so people are starting to move more and more data into the cloud, whether this is for a DR scenario or just to have some of that kind of key, really kind of strategic data into the cloud. But we're seeing more and more people utilize this kind of new technology. So this all kind of, as I said, ties into this kind of growth. And the idea is, how do we kind of continue to back up within those windows when we have an exponential amount of growth in our data? And how do we make sure that when we do back up that data, how do we then restore it quickly as well? It's not just about the backup, but also the restoration. And then finally, with this kind of extension into the virtual, into the cloud, physical, we're seeing more and more kind of complexity and cost, more and more different modules that have to manage lots of different areas within the backup infrastructure in the state. So obviously, as I said, this kind of has the impacts of increased complexity. And as we see more and more complexity, we see more risk. Obviously, we're not able to kind of, having to do things differently. There might be more kind of error by humans. It might not be necessarily configured correctly. We might not even have a system that can protect a certain areas, such as virtual, physical, and so forth. We're seeing our SLAs being reduced, so more and more businesses now becoming 24/7 global businesses. So where we're going to be able to kind of back up those critical systems when we've got less time to do that in our backup windows. And obviously, if we miss these backup windows and we therefore have essentially a DR scenario, then we obviously have the downtime, and then with that, lost profits and obviously reputation as well. So all these kind of systems are coming to play, and essentially the system solution we're going to put forward today will obviously be able to address these kind of trends. So what's new in Backup Exec? So for many of you who are existing customers already, if you are aware of Backup Exec 15, you may have noticed that we've moved towards what's called a feature pack model. So this is essentially now we're looking for, as it says, feature packs. So every quarter we aim to release a new kind of release, new feature pack, and and it includes a feature in there as well. So when I say feature, whether that's some kind of improvement, something that will be able to help you with your environment, as well as updated support for all the latest Tier 1 applications and operating systems, in which case for Backup Exec is Microsoft, as well as the likes of VMware, Hyper-V, and all your Microsoft applications. So just to let you know, because previously with Backup Exec, we used to maybe have a few service packs far in between. that might not necessarily hit certain kind of SLAs, for you guys to be able to back up your tier 1 application. Now we're moving towards this feature pack model, and we're going to be hitting this every quarter to make sure that obviously any new tier 1 applications are going to be supported day 1. So just a couple of the features that have been out. So we're currently now on feature pack 4. So obviously we had quite a lot of features coming out in each one of these feature packs. So since the initial B15 release, some of the main ones I want to pick out is particularly the cloud connectors. So we now have the ability to kind of connect to cloud storage, S3 storage. There is a document that we can provide that gives you all the different types of storage we support in the cloud. And we can obviously upload our data into there for a DR scenario, therefore reducing the need for tape and obviously reducing the need to send that off to Iron Mountain and all the associated management that comes with tape and complexity. Some of the other key area that we also want to point out is this virtual widget. So essentially this allows us to, as an administrator, you guys, whoever you are, when you're managing the system, you don't want to be looking at the system every time. You don't want to be spending hours learning how the system works. So we've now incorporated new widgets around the virtual side, as well as this kind of configuration validation feature as well. What this will do is look at your environment. It will then see how you are using your current licensing model and actually ensure that you're using it to the best practices, making sure you're using the quickest methods for backing up your data, and also when it comes to restores as well. And then finally, we do have like-for-like support of our VMware and Hyper-V, so we have change block, incremental backup methods using change block tracking, quicker restores, as well as our simplified licensing as well, which we'll talk about later on. But again, this demo, just to reiterate, is just to give you an idea of what's out there. If any of you are looking to go further and want a more in-depth demo, by all means, just let us know and we can do that for you. So, moving on, for those of you who are new to Backup Exec, this will be obviously a better slide for you guys. Essentially, Backup Exec allows people to basically back up not only their physical environments, but also their virtual environments as well. And this is one of the key messages that we are aiming to get out, because not a lot of people realize this. And therefore, going out and looking at separate solutions for their virtual and separate solutions for the backup physicals, and therefore creating additional complexity as well as cost and as well as resource cost as well, because you have to train multiple people up on multiple solutions. So with our solution, it's one console, it's one backup, and we can look after not only your physical but also your virtual environment, and obviously then send that off to the cloud if needs be as well. Not only that, we also have extensive support for multiple kind of backup storage, all the way from kind of disk-based backups to tapes. We have the most extensive tape and tape library support, as well as cloud. So you can essentially send any of this data to any kind of backup storage you want within a single solution. You wouldn't have to, some people are using a separate solution for virtual, sending it to Backup Exec to then send on to tape and so forth. And this is all native. We can connect this straight up to our backup server. There's no need for any kind of bridging or any kind of pass-throughs or anything like that. This can all be configured straight from the console, and we can create one job to manage all of this and then offload it to multiple different tapes and different backup storage based in one job. And I'll show you how we do that later on in the demo to make it easier. So just a little bit more information around our virtual support. So essentially, as I said before, we can do single pass backups across our virtual machines and our hypervisors, and from there we can either restore our virtual machines as a whole machine if a system or an area or a machine goes down, or more likely, which most of you have probably experienced, 99% of the time is most likely you're going to be restoring an individual item. And we, again, from our single pass backup, we can browse to that individual item and actually restore it straight away. So without the need staging, without the need for bringing up any kind of additional machines and then browsing it and then picking it out, we can search and we can just restore it straight away. Zero impact. We obviously support Hyper-V and VMware. And obviously, as I said before, we have this kind of granular, this is what we call the ability to restore files, folders, as well as application objects. So for Exchange, we can restore individual mail items, mailboxes, AD, it could be AD objects. We can do this granular restore from the single pass backup and straight from the storage. And as I said, we're also making some great strides towards our virtual backups. So in our most recent release, feature 4, we've just released a feature called Instant GRT, or Instant Granular Recovery Technology. And this is basically the ability at the end of a job, we used to do a catalog which allows us to do this granular restore. Essentially, we've kind of bypassing that now and browse during a restore. So essentially, it allows us to do a quicker backup as well. And we've also done other areas where we've increased the speeds on our virtual backups as well from the previous versions. One of the areas where Veritas really stands out is its deduplication technology. So we can dedupe right across virtual and physical, so it's called global deduplication. So we don't silo different jobs into different deduplication pools. We do it right across the environment, regardless of what job it is, and regardless of whether it's virtual or whether it's physical. We can do this at different areas as well. So we can do it client-side deduplication. Client-side puts the onus on the actual client to do all this deduplication technology and only send the unique data across the connection. So this reduces the amount of network utilization. It reduces the kind of impact on the actual server itself, the backup exec server, by offloading some of that to the client. If the clients are unable to manage that, we can do what's called server-side deduplication. This allows us to send all the data to the server, and the server will then churn through it all and make sure it only picks out the unique blocks. And then finally, we can also do it with OST as well. So OST stands for Open Storage Technology, and this is essentially third-party vendors, third-party storage vendors that utilize our technology. And what we can do with that, using client-side, we can send the data straight to the OST appliances, completely bypassing the backup exec server itself, therefore, again, reducing the load, reducing the network traffic, because we're only sending those unique data. So we've got lots of different areas where you can use a deduplication. It is deduplicated across the whole environment, regardless of where it is, and it is also block level deduplication. So any changes done to a file or a folder, only the block is actually changed. We don't take a whole new copy of that file just because it's, say, for example, a Word document, someone added a full stop at the end of the sentence, that would change the file hash, but we'd only actually store that change block. So we still keep the rest of the file as it was, therefore increasing the amount of utilization in our dedupe technology. So really strong performance in our dedupe there. So looking at kind of the management, and we'll see this in the demo next, all the kind of system, all the kind of setup within the system, within the solution is actually wizard driven. So it's click through, you can see it, you can click next, it's all kind of next. So therefore reducing the time needed for you to actually learn the product and go on an expensive course to learn how all the new features are laid out and how it all works. It kind of guides you through this. We also have a home screen that essentially tells you what's happening at a glance. We brought back the job monitor that many of you may have used in our previous versions in 2010. Which was subsequently removed in 2012, so that's now back, so you can see all your jobs, so you can see what's coming up, what's been scheduled, what's happened, whether it's successful, failed, and so forth. And also, we also have some kind of really cool technology. It automatically looks and checks certain hypervisors. And if any new machines have been included, you can essentially then check whether it will automatically include that into the next backup job, to ensure that any kind of new machines are protected, because as we know, quite a lot of the time, some people, certainly the VMware admins, will probably create a new machine but won't tell you, and therefore as a backup administrator you won't be aware of that. But with this system, it'll automatically pick that up during the scan at the beginning of the job and include that into your backup job, and then we'll make sure it's protected. So with that, I'm going to move over onto my demo. Just to make sure we're aware, Backup Exec 15, certainly with the latest feature pack, we now only support 64-bit operating systems, so that can be 2008, R2, it can be 2012. The reason for this is obviously improved performance. But just coming on to the actual console, I'm just going to go through again, like I said at the beginning, this will just be a high level to give you an idea. As I say, if you want to have a more in-depth, then obviously get in touch. But this is the home screen, and this is the kind of widget I was mentioning before. I'm using Workstation, so I'm unable to connect using the kind of VADPs, the actual APIs provided with the hypervisors for VMware, and obviously the like for Hyper-V. So it's actually telling me here that I'm backing up in what we call the legacy way, which is essentially using agent-based backups, as you would if you were backing up a physical machine where we put an agent on there and we back it up. When it comes to a virtual, we actually use the APIs for a quicker backup and restore. So with this widget, straight away it's telling me that I'm backing it up wrong, and it'll actually then tell me, I can click on these hyperlinks, it'll give me a bit more information how I should be backing this up if I had the available infrastructure. It tells me what's successful. We can scroll down, we can kind of see the disk, we can also see the backup sizes and so forth. And you can change this and you can add multiple different areas and different boxes and then move these around and so forth, very much like the kind of news site on the BBC it used to be. And you can also change the kind of layout. But where you do most of the administration, where you'll spend most of your time setting up, is within the kind of backup and restore pane. And here you can see a traffic light system. You'll have to excuse Saturday and Sunday as my system was switched off, so I didn't run a backup. Green obviously means everything went well. We have an orange, which essentially means the backup ran, but there was exceptions. So an example of this might be that you selected client-side dedupe, but there wasn't enough resources, so it failed over onto server-side dedupe. So it backed up the data, but it didn't do it how it was expected. And then red was pretty much it failed, and therefore it needs to kind of be remediated. Within any kind of amber or red, again, to make it easy for the administrator, we've included hyperlinks to the actual knowledge base articles where you can go and find the data and therefore look at how to resolve that issue. In terms of kind of setting up a job, we can do it in multiple ways. We can right-click on a resource, we can click on one of the buttons at the top, and we can then create a backup job. And straight away you can see you can do a backup to deduplication disk or whatever kind of disk you have set up, or tape or cloud. Again, just based on my environment, I can only do what's been set up. But say we take deduplication disk for an example. We can see here, do you want to use kind of a VADP or Hyper-V, or should we do an agent? And as I only have the agent option, I'll be moving forward with this one. So on the left, we can select machines. We can actually now select multiple machines into one job. So you do not have to create a single job for every single machine. You can add more. Again, I only have the one server, so I can't show that, but just to make you aware. We can also kind of change what we class as critical. So if you right-click here, we can actually tag something as business critical. What this means is this will prioritize this backup to basically back up this part of the system first before any other backups are done beforehand. And then that way, if you are restricting your backup windows and they do overrun, or they don't finish for any reason, your business critical data is backed up first, whether that be a file share. Obviously you want to protect the individual files, unique files, rather than the actual operating system, because you can always restore the operating system from a disk. So we can always make sure we can back up our business critical information. We also have what's called simplified disaster recovery. So it allows us to kind of disable it. This basically means if we disable this, we don't back up the system state. So basically it just means we can restore it to a state when it was fully working. So if we turn this on, system state will be brought back on, as you can see there. And it allows us to essentially then bring back the whole machine as it was. If you just want to back up a drive, then you can turn this off. So as I said, we can do a lot more in here. We can do excludes, we can add servers and so forth. But again, for the purpose of the demo, it's just to give you an idea. The actual job itself will pull through a default. So I've actually got a grandfather, father and son job here. So how it kind of goes through. But as I said, we can also add stages. So if you imagine I had, say, for example, tape included or cloud, I could maybe do a first pass. We recommend disk to tape or disk to cloud. So the first pass goes to our disk, because disk is local, it's quicker for our individual restores or files. But within the same job, again, we can have multiple servers in here. Then say, right, put this off, duplicate this off to cloud. And we can then even create multiple jobs off different kind of jobs. So we could say at the same time, I want you to convert this to a virtual machine. And we can then add different stages up here and so forth. So you can create a single job with all these different stages, with all your different RPOs, RTOs, based on what you want to use, your tape, your cloud, and so forth. So it's a really kind of, as I said, really reduces the need for kind of administration time. You don't have to create multiple jobs. Certainly in the older versions, for those of you who were in 2010, you might have backed up the disk. And if you wanted to offload to tape, you have to create a second job on the tape, then obviously restore back up to tape as well. With this, you can just do it within the same job. So that looks after our kind of our backup policy. Once you ran your backups, that's only half the job. Everyone talks about backups and backup speeds, but when it comes to recovery, this is where we really excel. So we can actually restore data as well. As I said before, in that single pass backup, we can actually restore individual granular objects, so files, folders, and if we have an apps and DB agent, and say a SQL or Active Directory, SharePoint, Exchange, we can actually restore individual objects from those applications as well. So you can search, you can browse. Again, as you can see, it's all very kind of driven on a wizard. So straightforward, select your backup set you want to kind of restore from, click next. You can, if you don't want to go through any of these options, it gives you lots of extensive options, but if you just want a default to restore where it was before, with the same kind of structure and the same kind of permissions, you can just click next. But what it gives you is the ability to actually change and restore to different machines, restore to different hypervisors. You know, if you're backing up one virtual machine from VMware, but you have a different VMware hypervisor you want to restore to, you can do. But again, it just kind of gives you all these different options, gives you the granularity to really deep dive, but also gives you the broad kind of next for the standard options to just restore the data. And then what it will give you, you can give it a name, a schedule, it'll give you a summary, and you can click finish, and then that'll then restore that individual item or machine, and then start the job. So lots, as I said, very wizard driven. The same when it comes to adding multiple machines. You just click on the machine you want to add, click next, allow a trust, and then add the actual information. We'll walk through that. Add it, add a server, and then click next, and it'll give you a summary, and then it'll push the agent out. So moving on, so this, like I said, this is where it essentially gives you all your kind of where you set up and manage your jobs. But when it actually comes to monitoring them, this is where we'd look at looking at all the kind of job histories that have ran recently. So we can see what was missed, what worked, what didn't. We can drill down, click on these, and get a report. We can actually hold jobs, delete them. We can actually tell them to run now. So these are our upcoming jobs. These are the jobs that have ran. So again, it's just a really good holistic view to see what's been happening in your environment. And then finally, when we come to kind of storage, as I said, we can have dedupe disk, we can have network storage, we can have also cloud-based storage using S3 connectors, and as well as standard disk, advanced disk. So there's lots of different, as well as tapes and so forth. This will all be listed here. It'll give you kind of an idea of how it all kind of looks out. You can inventory, catalog, and so forth. And then finally, reports, and where we can run reports, which are pretty much self-explanatory. But as I said, the whole idea of the system is to make it easier for an administrator like yourselves to kind of install the product, push out your agents using the wizard, create a single job, to incorporate every kind of backup target you want, whether that be disk, local disk, dedupe disk, network storage, cloud, tape, and you can configure that all in one job for all your machines, and then kick that off, and essentially you can then have your traffic light systems as well as any email notifications when something goes wrong. So with that, I'm going to switch back to the slides and just cover the last few slides. So the last thing I'm going to touch on is the new licensing and pricing that was introduced in Backup Exec 15. So in 14 we did release a capacity edition, but it was relatively expensive for what it was. So now we've now reduced it significantly. With the capacity edition, there are two versions. There is a full capacity, which essentially gives you every single agent and option and the ability to deploy these as many times as you like within the capacity that you've purchased. And it allows you to then, obviously, if you install additional, take on more machines, or you create new machines, you can then just deploy the agent without the need to going back to the reseller, asking for a new license like you would with the standard pricing, and then having the whole problem with code term when it came along later on. It is trust-based. It will, if you go over, we do not stop the backups. Backups are the ultimate insurance policy. So do not be aware of that. But obviously, we are running now more compliance tests, and we would ask that if you do purchase more, that you true up. So if you do use more, that you true up the following year. We also have a light edition for the smaller environments. The light edition doesn't have the Mac agent, and also doesn't have some of the bigger features that you'd see in the larger kind of deployments. So if you have a single site with a single drive with a small amount of data, then you probably wouldn't want the likes of deduplication, central management, and multi-drives, and so forth. But as I said, with the full capacity edition, you get everything included, and this includes additional functionalities and features that I didn't mention, but things like optimized duplication, the ability to replicate between sites, which was seen as nice to have before with the standard-based model. Now with the capacity, you now get the access to that, and a lot more kind of features that you wouldn't be aware of if you just purchased the kind of minimum requirements to back up a certain server and then send that to a Backup Exec server. So there's lots of additional functionality in Backup Exec that people aren't aware of because they didn't purchase the likes of centralized management and dedupe and then the additional functionality that came with that. So as I said, we've seen a dramatic drop in price, so it's now a lot more competitive. In terms of moving across, if you're on an older version, if you're within active maintenance, you can download the new version and all the feature packs straight away. There's no if you're in maintenance, you can download them as and when they come out, all the new feature packs. There's some really good stuff coming out in the future as well on the roadmap. So we're seeing a lot of kind of the next feature pack is a particular one I'm looking forward to, and we'll see really good features there. If you're without a maintenance, you can upgrade still. So bring yourself back in and then obviously allow it, and then obviously there's a respective discount there. And again, if you're looking at a competitor or moving away from a competitor, then obviously we can give you some discount there as well. But for more kind of detailed pricing and quotes and so forth, get in touch with the guys at Bytes and they'll be able to give you a competitive quote. So that's the end of the slides. Like I said, it's just to give you a good overview, hopefully, of the system. So just to kind of hit on the key points, we do both physical and virtual. We can back up to the cloud. 15, the significant speed increases, and there's a lot of functionality in there to kind of make it easier for you to manage the actual infrastructure. And with most kind of, if you have limited time, basically get the most out of your kind of out of the system using the wizards and so forth. So with that, I am going to pass back to Ross, I believe.
Thank you for that, Andy. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can.
Okay, perfect. So I just want to use the next slide to explain the relationship a bit more in a bit more depth between Bytes and Veritas. So Bytes are a Veritas Platinum partner, one of only a small handful in the UK. They also have a dedicated team of product and licensing specialists. This will give them the ability to illustrate savings throughout the new licensing models. Also, with over 15 years of experience selling the Veritas portfolio, they also have skilled account managers with the SSE and VSC accreditations. And the Veritas Backup and Archiving specialized. So Bytes can offer anything from light touch health check right through to a fully managed service to integrate into the cloud. They also have a team of accredited consultants across the Veritas management portfolio, and they have really strong relationships and considered their go-to partner with Veritas. And so they actually finished the last financial year across EMEA in the top 3 partners. So just to add to that as well, there'll also be some discounts available for any customers that want to come and talk to us about that. They can use the Veritas team@bytes.co.uk email address. Any inquiries that they have. So I believe we might have a few questions. We're going to open up to a Q&A. Just another thing to add there before we go to the Q&A. Sorry that there is a promotion available again to use the Veritas team@bytes.co.uk email address, where when bought through Bytes, customers can get up to 20% discount.
Okay, thanks, Ross. So we're going to open it up to any questions now. So if you do have any questions, you just pop those in the questions box, which is just at the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll answer those for you shortly. Okay, so we have one question here that says, is there an option to move from a per server model to per terabyte?
So I believe at the moment, and again, might be something that Ross might be able to help out with as well, that you can, and I think you can do that at the renewal price. Could that be correct, Ross?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so the promotion on the offer on that is that each server agent license that you've got, you can look to move over to a terabyte. So in certain instances where you've got a larger estate of clients compared to the amount of data, it can be quite attractive to move over to that model. So certainly at renewal time, but also just during that contract period, it is sometimes more attractive to move over that, because obviously you then unlock things like deduplication, virtual backups, and open to other agents and features that you potentially don't have under the client model.
Okay, thanks, Matt. So we have another question here that says, what are the average dedupe rates?
Yep, so dedupe rates, there is no real average there. Essentially will depend on your environment. But typically, if your environment's quite standardized, especially around Windows, then essentially you will get all the kind of dedupe savings around kind of similar OSs. So say, for example, all your servers of 2012, then obviously we'll only take one copy of that. When it comes to kind of dedupe rates, what we can do, there is a tool as well. It's called the BDAT tool. That stands for Backup Exec Data Deduplication Assessment Tool. We can give that out to you. You can run that on your system. It will then look across your system and look at certain files and operating systems that are the same, and then give you an average. It won't give you the exact, but it will give you a good idea of the amount of kind of deduplication savings you can make. But it really does depend on your individual environment.
Okay, so thanks, Andy. So I think that's all the questions we have today. So I'm just going to hand you over to Matt Compton from Bytes.
Okay, and just closing, thanks for the time to join the webinar today. I hope you found it useful. As we started the call, I think some of you are current Backup Exec users, some of you are new to the product. As Andy mentioned, there is some value that we can provide around things like that BDAT tool, or having a look at the environment and see if there is a better way of licensing that, more cost effective and open to other features and benefits. So if you do have any queries, do drop an email to the Veritas team at bytes.uk, and one of us will pick that up and certainly be in touch and be able to provide you with that value.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, so thank you everyone, and thank you Andy for presenting the webinar today, and thanks everyone for joining. And as mentioned previously, if you would like to fill out the critique form at the end, we really appreciate that as well. Okay, so thank you everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.